So that's not super high quality video, but like what I'm gonna do is we're gonna have a database, like something like this guy has a video. It's very long and it's very technical, right? But all we have is database, and we can manipulate this database. We can add and delete from the database, and this is live database. So if you restart your browser, if you restart your computer, that database will not change. Okay, it will live on a live server. Okay, so let's get started, right? Now, to complete this video, to be able to do this, I will leave 4 videos in the description below. You have to go through them to know how to do this. To know how to do this, right? That's one video, right? This one is very long. It's like 1 hour. The rest of them are quite short, so you'll be able to do them. All right. So in the description, you will have those links, and you need to know this to be able to do what I'm doing in here. Otherwise, you're just gonna get lost. Okay. But fundamentally, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to create a database that we can live database effectively, and we can manipulate data from it, and that's it. Okay, so let's do what are we doing? Okay, we need to create a new folder, I suppose, right? Let's create new folder, call it, I don't know, live database. Okay, let's do it this way. Put into my projects. So there it is, right? Live database. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is you need to create a server. Server, and it's going to be JavaScript. Now, next we need to install some applications. So change direction, and we can click and drag this like this, and then it's going to go there. All right. So we're going to do multi-installation. So in npm install, and we're going to install a lot of them. I'm going to put this into description below as well. So we will need, oh, well, first thing we need is init, right? We need this thing. Yes. All good stuff, right? So what do we need to install? Express, NodeMon. This one is optional, but it's saves you a lot of time trying to restart the server all the time. Probably course and NEDB, right? Now, course you need it if you want to be able to use the API from the same server. Now, again, I'm assuming you already watched and went through all of those tutorials that I recommended. Otherwise, again, you'll be lost. You won't know what those. You won't know what Express or NodeMon or Course or NEDB do if you don't go through those courses, right? Okay, so the first thing we do is we create an HTTP server, right? So standard code, const, you already done that. Express equals require, we create the module, express, all right? Const app equals express, and we use this, right? Okay, next thing we do is we do const port equals, this is optional. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. It's going to be process environment post port, right? Or we put it on port 5000, okay? Now app listen is going to be port callback function console log. I'm using Ditto, so in case you just ask me in the comments if you want to know how this thing works. You see, like I have this add-on, so Control N, and it just inserts. All right, and then here we're gonna write um, running on port, and then here we're gonna insert the port. All right, so all right, another trick. This is not included in those. This is not covered in the tutorials, but I'll show you this trick. Right, you see start node. Because you have node monitor installed, just change this to node mon, and now it's going to automatically start it in the node mode. So go start, npm start, right? And it will automatically run it in the node mon, right? Okay. Ugh, did it crash? Control C to stop it, okay? So node mon server.js, right? Okay, good stuff. It's running. Honestly, I don't know why it's giving me this error, but it doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. All right. So next thing we need to do, we will need to create our database. All right. Let me go into my notes. How do we create a database? We go with, okay, so let's just write database, right? Const data store. Wait, we need to install the module first, right? Yeah, yeah. So the module is usually in here, right? Equals require and edb, right? DB, yep. And now we need to create new database. Const database, new data store. Also, I'm assuming you already know how to do JavaScript, React, and object programming, right? Because again, you won't be able to follow if you don't know. So data store, let's call this test data DB. Okay. Now we need to load this database. Database load database like this. This in theory should load it, right? Okay, so I edited the code a little bit. I changed this from being all capitals to all small, right? I renamed the file server to 80 because you see, I don't know why, honestly, but sometimes if you have a lot of folders with server.js, it's like the same name, it can bug it. Like I noticed, maybe I'm wrong because I'm like junior developer, but I mean, it can bug it. So I renamed this. I also renamed it in here. You see nodemon server 80. Okay, and the name of the database, I put new data.db. Now I'm going to save. This should create a database called newdb, right? Yeah, there it is, all right. Again, the reason why I changed the name from test database is because I already have like a test database in here. Do you know what I mean? It can bug it sometimes. All right. And obviously make sure that my syntax is correct. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, So now we need to create an ability for us to put stuff into this data. Okay. I'm assuming you already have this thing, Postman. All right. We're going to be using it for testing. So first, let's test if the server is working, right? So let's test. So we don't need this one here, okay. So let's do app, get, request. Let's put test, like this. Now let's go response, send, hello world, all right? So we're running at 400, right? 4,000, test. They should console log hello world, right? Yes, hello world. Okay, perfect. Now the reason why I like this program is because it's now you can do it in your browser as well, but it's this program is a lot quicker, honestly. You see, if you do it in your browser, it's hello world as well. Honestly, let's just do it in the browser. This way you don't need to think about the program. Let's just do it in the browser. Okay, so now we need to be able to post into the database, right? So database.insert. Now this function here, um, what this does is it creates new date, then it gets the time, which is like from, it starts, it's like epoch time or something, it's called like this, epoch time or something like this. You can basically Google this, honestly. You'll see what it does. Yeah. This one here. Look, you see. Returns used to return number of milliseconds since January 1970, right? That's get time, right? The date that dash. So this, that's what it does. So you have like a very long number, and it's perfect, and it's gonna be unique per like millisecond, right? So it's very hard to get a duplicate. Like you're talking close to impossible to get a duplicate. And to string just converts this from a number to a string, basically. That's all it does. Okay, so every time we do this, it should, in theory, put this query in here. All right, so let's test it. Let's do this. Oh, yeah, okay. Let me just pause the video because I just realized that every query, every query from browser to the server is actually a GET request, right? So I just need to make an exercise out of this. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back now. Okay, so now we have a data. Let's do another one. Let's go with boom, right? Again, we're gonna query this, and let's do one more. Let's do, I don't know, tree. You see, like epoch thingy is working ID. Now this ID gets added automatically. I don't really use it because I cannot control it. I like to control stuff. So we do this one again. Okay, good. So this added. All right. So now we have this database. So now we need to figure out how do we access this database from a from other applications. All right. So I don't know. You're building something somewhere and you want to access the database. How do you create an API out of it? All right. So to do that, we need to put it on a GET request, right? I think. So we'll put it as API, okay? Request. So every time you go to local server 4000, you put in API. This will return this database to you, right? So we do this, okay? So this will be a find request on this thing. So it's gonna be a find request, right? So it's gonna be this syntax, only this is going to be completely empty, all right? And this we're gonna change to data. Other than that, it's exactly the same syntax. So we just say database find, right, empty. Then we need error and data. And then I think we need to respond, send, and we're going to send this thing here, which is actually the data. We're not going to do the error handling because, I mean, you probably covered that in the other tutorials. All right. So this should technically do it at this stage, right? Yeah. I think honestly that should do it. All right. So localhost, if we do API, in theory, that should do it, right? Yeah, there is your database in here. Okay. So now you have access to it. Now, if I do it in my application, I don't think I'm gonna get it because so now I already have like a pre-built database or pre-built application in React, but you can use your own one, right? Well, let me do it with you. All right, let me do it with you. Otherwise, we might get confused. Okay. So we need to create a JavaScript file, right? And then we're gonna have to console log it. Okay. Well, not a. Let's create a folder first. Whoops. No, 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 no. And we need to do public, right? So inside public, we're gonna put a HTML page, right? Let's call it index.html, okay? And inside the public, we're gonna create index.javascript. All right, so we need to let our server allow static pages. So the way to do that is we need to go with app.use express, I think, static, and then here we put the folder which is public, I think, like this, right? This will allow us to kind of query HTML pages. Okay, so now let's just put in HTML code. So this is kind of my boilerplate. We do not need CSS in here, so we can remove this. And then just load up your JavaScript index. So JavaScript from the external file. Make sure it's at the bottom of the body, otherwise it's not going to work. And module in here is optional. I don't think you need it. But like I just include it anyway because I work with React a lot and you kind of need the module in there. Okay, so now let's just write down h1, write down test. So now we need to make sure that we can access this HTML page, right? So this will be index.html, okay? So test is in here, all right. So now we need to go to here and we're gonna console log this data. So we will need a fetch method, all right? So I already have fetch methods, I think, in here. We don't need this part. We need URL. Again, my apologies for the syntax. Let's do URL. And this URL will be our API, okay? Like this. Yeah. So this will fetch. And then we're gonna console log final, which is this thing here. Now, again, I'm assuming you already know how async functions and fetch methods work because it's basically that's the syntax for it. If you just copy the syntax, you'll be able to do it. So this will be I'll just write it from the beginning for you, okay? So it's gonna be const. It's a function, so let's name it fetch data, right? This is very important. Async function brackets, right? So this will be const response, all right? Now, important, await, fetch, and then URL. Now, you can pretty much put this thing in here if you want. It doesn't matter, right? You can just do this. I normally do it through this. It makes no difference. Const, then data, so you can call it anything you want, right? Those things you can call anything you want, but by convention, people tend to call it response and data. So this is await again, and then response, which is this thing here, dot JSON and brackets. So now data should be loaded into this thing here, right? So if we console log data, right? And also remember, we need to run this function. I like many times I'm like, why is this not working? Oh, I forgot to actually call the function. Okay. All right. So this should be in our, if we go to our index.html, this should be here in the console log, right? Yeah, there it is. You see, there's the database. Now, interestingly enough, course error did not come up. That's very interesting. I installed course, but I did not load it into my this because normally you have to kind of write some script in here, which is gonna be in the video. It's video 4 in the description, but it didn't come up. That's very interesting. I wonder why that is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There is your data, right? And now you can do whatever you want with it. All right. If you want to, let's say, well, let's do something with it, right? Let's do something with it. Okay, so let's call this const, I don't know, database, right? We'll call it database, right? And it's gonna be like this. I wonder, wait, what is the format of this thing, right? Oh, it's an array. Okay, so it's an array. All right, so now we can, database is equal to data. All right, so now this empty thing here will become this. Okay, so now if we console log database, this should give us the same as before, right? This should be exactly the same as before. Type error, assignment to constant variable. Oh, yeah. That's because this needs to be let, not constant. Otherwise, it's not going to change. Downside of using why didn't load? I wonder. Those developers who are amateurs, Jesus Christ. I think it's because it's not a. Man, that's why I like working in React because it's so much easier in React. Let me see, console log. Because I'm used to working with states, like vanilla JavaScript sometimes drives me crazy because of stuff like that, you know? Okay. Yeah. I just need to create a separate function that will assign database, extract data, and assign it to database. Yeah, but why didn't that change in here? Well, it changed. Yeah, because it's a functional scope versus global scope. Oh, you see, that's why I like React because it just does not possess problems like this. And anyway, it doesn't matter. All right, so let's extract the name from it, right? Database dot, well, database 0, right? That name should be Dimitri. In theory, right? It should be Dimitri. Oh, it's a tree. Oh, yeah, because it's first. All right. BRB, one sec. Okay, so basically I'm struggling to get this data. You see the way like data out of this function. So if you do it in the local scope within this function, you can manipulate it, right? But getting it out of this function, like I read the whole fetch, honestly, I'll have to say it's not very straightforward. You have to create some kind of nodes, blah blah blah. I realized, dude, like I'll do it in my React, right? Because when I'm kind of React specialist, so I know how to do it in React. Okay, so here is your API URL, all right? So const fetch data, we call this, right, equals to async usual const response equals await fetch URL const data is equal, well, let's data out, let's call it, right, response, whoops, await response, and then we have response JSON, right? So we're gonna use two things. We're gonna do use state and we're gonna use effect, okay? Did I include JSON thingy in here? Yeah, I did, yeah. Honestly, what I'll just copy and paste this. Just to make sure, because like in React, I know 100% it should work. And data out, let's go like this. And we're gonna create, this is some React stuff, so sorry if you guys getting confused, right? So data equals use state, like this. And then set data is equal to data out. Now we need to run the function. We're gonna run it on load, fetch data, right? And in here we're gonna console log data. Let's just console log data. Console log data. All right. So now let me just start this new terminal. My light up, npm start. Okay, so this gave me the course error. Do you see what I'm saying? Is that why in the previous one it didn't give me the course error? All right, so let's handle the course error. We go to our, where's our server thing? All right. So we need to do const course equals require course, right? And then we need app dot use course, I think, right? Like this. Okay. So now you see, like I can extract data, no problem, in here, in my React, right? So now let's manipulate the data and do something with it. So let's say, honestly, can I? Oh, let me just do this real quick. Let's do this data.map value. Now what I'm doing in here is probably going to confuse absolute shit out of you, but like you have to know. I'm gonna destructure name. Like this, what I'm doing from here is kind of unneeded because you already got to the point where you can extract data, right? So now return. We need a key. Actually, we're gonna destructure ID as well, so we're gonna use it as a key. ID. Okay. Yeah, so you see, like I have absolutely no problems. So you see, now we can iterate through the data and extract name. You see, so I'm just extracting the name from here. We can put ID as well if we want to, right? Let's just put and and we put ID and like is equal to ID. Okay. Yeah, you see, like, and now ID is in here as well. But the problem is why I cannot do it in here. Now you can kind of do this stuff as well. The only problem in here is you have to do it within the scope of this function here, right? So for example, let's say we want to, let's say end of the function, right? So let's say you want to iterate through the array from data dot map value and just console log. Let's just console log name, right? So we can do value. Whoopsie daisy. Console log value dot name. Now value refers to every iteration of this thing. So we are going value, which is this thing here, and then we're targeting name. So in theory, this should console log tree, boom, Dmitry. In theory. Oh, I forgot to call it. I'm like, why is it not working again? Because I didn't call it, that's why. Yeah, you see, now this works in here. Right, there it is, right? If you want to extract ID, you can do that as well. And then value dot ID. Yeah, you see, you can do it, right? So if you're like a vanilla JavaScript guy, you are unfortunately limited to, for example, let's say you want to display it in, I don't know, let's say we want to display, you want to display it in the HTML canvas, right? So the first thing we'll do is we'll do this, right? Value.name, let A equal to this. We're gonna console log A. All right, cool. So let's put tree, right? So now we have tree. Let's put tree into the HTML canvas. All right, so tree is index 0, right? So this should show tree now, right? There is the tree. Okay. So now we need to go to our index HTML. We call this ID HTML conf, right? Okay. So in theory now we should be able to const HTML conf canvas. Oh man, this is like I'm telling you guys, if you're a vanilla JavaScript guy, please learn a framework because this is very cumbersome. This is very cumbersome to do. This will be HTML conv, right? We'll put this in here just so we can see it. Okay, so now this element is targeted, right? So now we can do HTML can inner HTML is equal to A0, right? I think that should do it, okay. Yeah, okay, so we did it, right? There's our tree, right? So like I said, unfortunately you are limited to I wonder if we just put A. In theory we should be able to do this, I think, right? Let's do H1 value that name. Let's see what happens. No, it doesn't want to do that. Anyway, index.html. Yeah, so there is a tree. Let's say we want to put in what was index number 2? Boom. There will be 1, right? This will be 1. It should be boom now. Yeah, there's a boom. Anyway, bottom line, if you want to manipulate it, you'll have to do it within the scope of this function. Otherwise, you have to go through this code, and I'm kind of used to, I'm spoiled by my frameworks, so React framework basically. So, but that's the end of the tutorial. Enjoy it. Take care.